everybody, Eric Dorward here with the Spartan Rocketry Club, and I'm continuing my build here of the Estes Optima Pro. In the intervening time, which has actually been a while, the epoxy has set interior to here for the motor mount, and the next step is to attach the fins, which again, I'm going to be using epoxy to do. Before I do that though, I need to mark off where these smaller fins are going to end up. So I've got my ruler here, and they are going to be 7 3/4 inches up from the end of the body tube. So I need to mark that on all 3 fins, or all 3 lines here. So let's take care of that quickly. Now, I thought about this, and I'm definitely going to epoxy the main fins into place, but we also have the little fins that are going to go where I'm marking right now. And I thought, you know, these probably don't need epoxy, but if I'm working with the epoxy, I might as well just keep working with the epoxy, right? I might as well do it all. The other thing that I'm going to do is deep down in there, I'm going to put a little bit of reinforcement, just a little bit, can you see? Probably not. A little bit of epoxy as some reinforcement here, right on the edge. Back here, I'm not going to do this. If I do it at all, I'm going to do it with epoxy clay, but that's not going to happen, at least not for a while. Alright, so let's don some protection here and get all my materials ready. I have my dowel, I have my 3 big fins, and I have my 3 little fins. Alright, so gloves on. Again, anytime I'm working with epoxy, I do put a glove on to protect against any possible allergic reactions I might have to the epoxy. And while I haven't had one to date, I also don't really touch this stuff, so it's kind of one of those things. I don't know if I'm going to have a reaction, and I don't want to find out. Alright, so I'm not sure how much this will really need, but better to have too much than too little. So I'm going to mix the two in the bottom of my cup here. Again, 5-minute epoxy, so I've got 5 minutes to work. You could certainly go get an epoxy that takes longer to cure, to set, whatever. I've never really run into, and I say that right before I'm going to start work here, I've never really run into a situation where 5 minutes wasn't enough. And it's entirely possible 5 minutes might not cut it to get everything glued today. But if it doesn't, I'm just going to stop and continue later. Alright, so I'm going to start by putting my extra bit of epoxy, and you won't be able to see any of this, unfortunately, in the body tube where the motor mount is. Again, there's not really much to see here, so I've just smoothed that out. Alright, now it's time to do stuff you actually will be able to see. So let's break out the fins, and I'm going to then paint some of this epoxy on. I want to make sure I'm getting it on the edges that are definitely going to be attaching. So on those edges, and then if I have any excess, I can kind of smear it along this edge, because this edge is going to end up, whatever gets pushed up here will end up on the outside, and that'll be the beginnings of a fillet of sorts. Alright, I have already dry fit these to make sure they go. Make sure that you have the fin in the right direction. It does look kind of backwards. Let's try it the other way. There we go. and I'm going to just hold it there for a few seconds. This is, not going to bond all that fast. So I'm just going to leave it like so and continue the process. I probably need to trim this bit of balsa scrap I've been using. It's got a bit of kind of amalgamated goop on it at this point. So I've been using it, and the epoxy, of course, the excess doesn't like evaporate or anything. It just sits there and gets slowly bigger on the one end. Okay. Just hold it for 15 seconds or so. Once I get all these on, I am going to, because I've got some glue that's escaped the seams there and it's kind of bubbling up. I don't want to leave that, of course. So I will brush it off with my gloved finger. But again, I'm not going to do that until I have all these on. The instructions, again, don't call for you to use epoxy on this. They call for wood glue. And if you are just going to use the recommended 29mm black powder motors from Estes, then that would be perfectly fine. It's gonna survive black powder, no problem, to just use wood glue. But if you want to use anything more significant, then epoxy is the way to go. Plus, honestly, this is a good chance to practice construction techniques. All right. And I'm going to count to 15 or so, and we'll see how I did. Now the first one I put in, I can see it kind of is falling out of groove. See, there's a little, it's disjointed, it's not in anymore. So make sure that that gets pushed back in. All right. Okay. Now I'm going to take a tiny little pause here, and I'm going to look at the fins to check for alignment. Now I don't have an alignment guide built into the diagram, and I don't have a guide of any sort elsewhere. But what I do have is built in down here, at least down here, you can see some of these angles are drawn on my mat here. So I'm going to be off my screen, of course, because it's too far down, but I can check against the angle guide that I have on my mat, on my cutting mat here, see how I'm doing. The good news too about through the fin is that if you have them pushed in basically as far as it'll go, that should be at the correct angle. So those look pretty good. I'm going to try not to bump them. Alright, so quickly, in the remaining time I have with my epoxy, I am going to, oh, you know what I said? I said I was going to clean up those seams. So let's do that. I'm going to have to probably quickly recheck all this. That fell out a little bit. Alright, let's quickly recheck. I bumped that one quite a bit. One of them anyway. I always rotate the rocket around the diagram to the model, or the fin alignment guide, to make sure that it's not just like, I'm reading it wrong on one of them, but not any of the other ones. Alright, got a paper towel here. Since I did touch the epoxy, I have wiped that off. Alright, now let's see what I can do with the remaining fins. Now these are smaller, of course, and they're not going through the wall, through the tube. Oops, that was not great. Let's brush that off. And I got some that fell over the side here. I really don't want that. Anyway, I was saying I could do this part right here with just wood glue because this is not anywhere near as big. You know, so it's not gonna, it's got a lot of surface area for the glue to stick to, and it doesn't need the strength as much. And I might run out of time here with the epoxy. It is starting to set, so we'll get as far as I can. I'm going to do this kind of the typical way. I'm going to start back at my line and I'm going to roll it up and roll it a little farther, and then I'm just going to check for my alignment. And this stuff, like I said, is starting to set up already, so I won't have a lot of time with it. So for each one then, I'm going to look down the barrel and it should look, you know, it should line up pretty nicely. Those look pretty good. See how much time I've got left here. Not much. Yeah, I've got an epoxy ball rather than kind of usable epoxy at this point. Well, that's okay. I'll see what I can get out of this, and then if I have to make some more, I will make a little tiny bit more. Yeah, I'm probably going to have to make some more. This stuff is basically turned into a rock. A plasticky rock, to be sure. And that's fine. So if you had 15-minute epoxy, you probably wouldn't have this problem, but, you know, it's okay. It's not really that big of a deal. I think I can get maybe this one on. Find enough of this stuff that's not completely set up yet. Yeah, that last one though, I'm not going to get any usable epoxy out of what's left in there after I take the time to get this on and on correctly. So unfortunate, but it's fine. I'll just make the tiniest little bit of extra. And it keeps sliding a little bit as I adjust it, which is mildly annoying, but what are you going to do? And I do want to keep this upright, of course, because I can't put it down anymore. The fins would be in the way. And that's, you know, what are you going to do about it? Oh, well, this looks wildly off. I need to check this one. Oh yeah, my goodness, that wasn't even close. I must have bumped this, or who knows what. Yeah, this one fin was really far off. Let's go through them all again, since I know the epoxy is setting up. Just make sure that just make sure everything's set properly at good angles. All right. I am again going to check the angle of the two fins that I have on here. Make sure that they are at least in line with the fin immediately behind them. So that would be unfortunate if they weren't. Alright, one last quick check on the main fins with my angle measure back here. I know you can't see this, but it's not all that interesting anyway. That looks pretty good. Just checking the fins. Oh, this one keeps popping out. I wonder if this is the same one that I'm having trouble with keeping the angles correct. It might be. Every time I move it. Every time I move it, it's like it pops out of the tube, and therefore out of alignment with everything else. Well, that's annoying. But what are you going to do? You just keep checking it, I guess. Okay. Checking my, again, in alignment with the two fins. Make sure that they are lined up with each other. That would be important. Okay. Alright, so the last one, I'm just going to do off camera. There's no sense in watching that. It's the same basic procedure anyway. I need to whip up some more epoxy anyway, so it'll take me a minute or two. Not really worth watching. Anyway, once this is all done, it's going to go off and sit outside, because this stuff, it stinks, and even if it didn't, it's not nice to breathe in. It's not all that great for you. Alright, so thanks for watching, and then, gee, I wonder what comes next. I'm not entirely sure. Final assembly, I guess, before we paint. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.